Hello and welcome to a deep dive session into the new Quantify module of Skore. We have addressed three main limitations that were present in the current Quantify module, namely the volume simulation. So at the moment, it's quite hard to simulate what if I do my process once or twice or 10 times. So now new Quantify makes it much easier to do. The second thing we looked at is giving you more control over which activities, which roles are involved into the computations of durations and costs. And the last one is the ability to compare scenarios. And so if you have an as-is and a to-be process, you can compare them side by side. On top of all that, we've added a new dimension, which is the FTE. So we think it's much more realistic when we talk about roles to have a look into how many FTE does that represent. And that, again, I will introduce that in another video. So this is a series of, let's say, at least 3 videos, and that I'm trying to keep to 10-15 minutes each. So on each box, what I've done here is I've added a duration. So that's the best and simplest way to get started with with Quantify is click on the paperclip and adding a duration. So this activity takes 15 minutes, this one 20 minutes, and this one 30 minutes. And I've done that for each box. So that's enough to get started. Let's go into the new Quantify tab. And then I have insights already. So I see, okay, I'm not using waiting time yet. I will show you that in a minute. And I see that my process takes 1 hour and 1.77, so 1 hour 3/4, 1 hour 45 minutes to perform. And if I keep scrolling down, I see in the bar charts, I see which activities are taking the bulk of the time. So I see that inputting expenses is actually the activity that takes the longest. And if I scroll back up to the top, I can see also which roles are the most involved. And as it is an expenses process for consultants, as expected, my consultant is the person doing the most of the work here. So it already gives me an insight on where my time is going. Let's input the additional waiting time, because I think it's for this kind of process, this is very interesting to say. So if we look at this process, we have the consultants getting a project code, scanning the receipts, and doing the paperwork, filling up an Excel file or something like that, and then it goes to the manager to be approved. And actually, the manager is not really approving the expenses, even if it takes him or her 5 minutes. She is only doing that like once a week. So the average waiting time will be around 20. If it's a 40 hours week, the average waiting time will be 20 hours. So let's put 20. And the same for the accounting department. They are not processing in expenses as they come in, unfortunately. They are just doing that once a week. So again, the average waiting time will be 20 hours. So let's now go back to now that I've changed these numbers, let's go back to the Quantify module and have a look at the impact on my process. And I see already, just with this pie chart, that most of the time of the process is spent waiting. So I have all these expenses reports that are not manipulated at all. They are just sitting around and waiting for someone to do something. And I see that on the lead time. So the lead time is the total time for a process. And I have 41 hour and 45 minutes on spent to process one expense report, and actually the bulk of it, 40 hours of it, is just waiting for an action to be taken. And again, when I look at my activities, I see that actually for paying the expense, the green, we can barely guess the green little bar here, because most of the time is going into just waiting for that to happen. This is already giving me some very interesting insights. Let's have a look now at the cost, because I know how long each activity takes. So what if I could add for each role how much they cost per hour? So this is what I've done here in the role manager. The accounting department is around 100 per hour, consultants at 150, and the same for the manager, 150 per hour. So now that I have the costs for each of these roles, we can start calculating the total cost of the process. So let's go to the cost tabs. And I see that this process, to process one expense, costs 335 euros. Here it's in euro. We can change the currency sign. This is what it costs me per week. So I find it very interesting, because we see that these small bureaucratic things start to add up very quickly. And here I'm only doing it once. We do not have any fixed costs in this process, but on each activity I could also add a fixed cost if you had any. And and scrolling down, I can look at what are the activities that are costing that are costing me the most. And I see actually, all right, that's the resolving issues activity seems to be very, very expensive. So, well, let's have a look at that. Let's go back to the process and look at this activity. So let's go here. It's at the bottom. It's this one, the resolve issue activity. So it actually takes 20 minutes, but it's very expensive because 3 roles are involved um, into this activity. The reason it's very expensive because of the volume. We say that every time basically there is an issue, so this is counted as part of the normal process that we need to resolve the issue. And this is also something, an innovation of this new quantify module, is that I can change the volume and say, all right, the volume is actually not 1, it's 0.1, so only 10% of the expenses reports have an issue, and it takes on average 20 minutes to resolve. But indeed, to resolve, I usually need the manager, the accounting, and the consultants. So let's change the volume to 0.1. And then let's go back into the Quantify tab, and let's have a look if we saw a difference on my process. So in terms of duration, probably made a little difference, but it's probably meaningless compared to the waiting time that we will address later. Going back to the cost tab. Now I can see, all right, the resolve issues is now in the 5th position, so it's a cost that is sounds a bit more likely. And I see that my 2 real, the one back on top, activities that are expensive are about inputting expenses and scanning the receipts. So if I need to automate this process or buy a system, this is definitely something I will have a look at, is how can we make that easier. And this is what we'll look at in one of the next videos, or how to create and compare scenarios. All right, so I mentioned I mentioned 2 innovation in this new quantify about the volumes and about the roles. So the first one is about the volume. So we are saying that this is the time it takes to process one expense report. But in my scenario, actually, I have 10 consultants doing the work. So first, what I'll do is I will go and remove the waiting time, because the waiting time, when you start playing with the volume simulation, they are not really suited for that. So let's remove, in this scenario at least, let's remove them and go back to Quantify. I remove my waiting time, which is great. It's a bit more simpler to read. And then I go into volume simulation. So here I see that what my number of iterations I desire is 10 per week. So I have 10 consultants, and every week they need to complete an expense report. So now I see, all right, actually I have 14.67 hours dedicated in my organization with my 10 consultants to managing the expenses. So this time is spread across the consultants, the accounting, and the manager. So this starts to add up slowly. If I go into costs again, I see that now obviously it jumped tenfold. So it's around 2,158 euros per week. Maybe it would be more realistic for me to have the results show per month. So I can change that here. So I have 10 consultants filling up these reports per week, but I want the result per month. So this is what I can change here. Month. So, all right. So now what I see is that 10 per week represents 43 iterations per month, because there's a little bit more than 4 weeks in a given month on average. And as a company, on salaries, mostly because I don't have fixed costs, I'm spending almost 10 crowns just paying people to process expenses. So this starts to give me quite interesting numbers. And now we can see the cost of inputting the expenses in an Excel file or whatever system that doesn't seem very user-friendly at the moment, and scanning the receipts, that it actually has a very real tangible cost. And imagine here the saving that it could generate if you were spending less time doing that. Or we can see that the other way around, the duration as well. We can see that 63 hours of worth of people of my company is just doing expenses. So it's absolutely, I'm shocked by my own example. The next thing that I mentioned is about the roles. So by default now, and this is really for the people coming from the current Quantify module, it takes all roles on a given box, but I have like very granular control over that. So now I can say, all right, either you take the first role only of the box, or and or actually just it will pick all the conditions, or you take the first role but also all the roles with a T. For example, this is what would this setup do. So every time I select something else, all the calculation will update. So I will go back to all the roles because this is how my my demo has been created. So what we've seen in this new Quantify module, first, very easy to get started, just using the duration tab and putting a volume of 1. If an activity is not done all the time, we can actually put this volume as 0.1 for an activity that is done only 10% of the case, which is very good for this kind of exception. We've also seen that we can play with the simulation. So now I'm having the numbers for, oops, changed when I scrolled, 10 times a week, but I want the results per month, or let's keep playing. Let's see how much it costs per year. All right, 100 grants per year spent doing expenses. So in the next video, we will look at scenario planning and FTE. And in the scenario one, we'll look at, all right, what if we had a very smart system that would save us time, and let's see how much time and gain and costs we would save by having a smarter system, a smarter way to process expenses. See you in the next video.